This is literally a family portrait. I have two older sisters. This is my handprint. This would be my mother. My father's passed away. And then these are their six grandchildren. Behind you are photo portraits of 4 children. You have dreams, right? And make a drawing of one of your dreams. And so all the kids got busy and they made a drawing of their dream. And then they actually, I didn't have a picture of this, then they were each given clay. And they were to do a 3-dimensional object that related to this drawing. Afterwards, I took their pictures. This piece here, you might see the relationship when I explain this to the Common Ground project and back to that original thought of what happens if you take clay from 2 different countries and put them together. I've done my piece here, okay? It's a piece of bread, it's ceramic, see? And it's marbleized clay from Cuba, clay from the United States, and it's being presented as a source of life. This is the oldest piece in the show, the only student piece. In 1976, these pieces were made after graduate school, 1981, 82. There's a lot of care and concern for that sort of silky, smooth, beautiful surface that later I kind of abandoned. At the time, I was very much consciously saying in my own way that I was kind of done with making functional pots and I wanted to somehow have my work address issues of the day, of the moment, of today. These pieces, I called this the smokestack mandala series. These were made when I lived in Buffalo. When I was a kid in Buffalo, the smokestacks were rip-roaring. The steel industry was very powerful. During my growing up years, the economy's changed. You know, before they used the word outsourcing, Buffalo got outsourced. So there are like these little nuts and bolts and remnants of kind of machine shop or something that are there. And it was in 1986 that I started making artworks with found objects in them. This is a fabulous example from 1986. That was a big jump. Like for me, creatively, I was feeling like I came back to Buffalo and all those steel mills were all closed and there was all this pollution, just this mess there. And I made art out of it. And I would just like take the stuff and make constructions out of them. This piece here is called Hourglass. It's a little different because it's not that rounded shape. Time is just kind of going through the hourglass. These pieces are very much about growth and gestation, evolution in a physical sense, but also in a life sense. This is a motherboard from a computer that was fired right in there. This is an old typewriter. It's thematically about communication and how we write things down. Water and the kind of the geology, the rocks and the gorge and the movement, the forces of nature, I think are really profound. These 5 pieces were part of that exhibition. They were in that show. Everything pretty much in the Earth Fragments show was dealing with this idea of like entropy, of things dispersing and then reforming. This one's from 1985. This is one that I still own. That's from the very beginning, the very first pieces that I did with iron and steel. And what happened was that turned into a lifetime of taking objects, found objects, and incorporating them into my work. This piece is, I think we chose it for the cover because it made for a nice cover image. It sort of encapsulates everything in one piece. These are computer parts from the early 1990s. This was my first computer, and this is a self-portrait. In the typewriter here it says, "To thine own self be true," like, you know, Shakespeare line. And that was how I presented myself in a piece of clay. How would you represent yourself? You know, it's like the artist can do that. Anybody can do it, but was the moment. Yeah. Somewhere around 97, I got this idea like what would happen if you took Earth from two countries that didn't like each other. I got communication from the Undersecretary General of Economic and Social Affairs. They said, we can't give you any money, but we want to sponsor this, and we will make it possible for you to do this project in the space, in the visitors lobby. I spent the entire month of April 2000 in the UN, in a public area, building this clay sculpture and having a participant from each and every country place a piece. These pieces of clay have the same number that corresponds to the bottles and all. We started from the center and had to work out. This is the handprint of a 100-year-old woman, and her name is Mary. She lived to be 108. And then this was a little baby, a little Chinese baby, and this is now, she is now 15 years old. The grand piece there that I'm going to explain, these are the bottles that are listed 1 through 188, and those numbers correspond. So if you look at the last bottle that says 188, you can easily see 188 is Zimbabwe. And likewise, number 1 is Afghanistan, and in between are all these other countries. This is a snapshot of the world in the year 2000. It did prove to be a very accessible artworks. It's so multidimensional that there's just so many different ways that people can access this. Everybody can relate. Doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter if they're 8 years old or if they're 80 years old. It doesn't matter if, you know, what their cultural or financial, educational background is. People seem to find a way to see themselves in this and in these others as well.